Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. I'm Paula Scatoloni, and I am so thrilled to be here today to circle back and sit with this beautiful individual who I spent some time with a while ago, being on the other end as a guest on her podcast. And I was inclined, something gave me a nudge to circle back to Tania at this time. And so that's what we're going to do today. Before I begin, I invite all the listeners, as usual, to take a moment and just assess where you are. If you're driving a car, of course, this might not apply, but certainly if you're at home, taking a moment to slow down, maybe take a breath and create some space. Much of my podcast guests and the solo episodes are bringing in new information and concepts. And in this Western, very phonetic kind of world that we live in, to take in new information requires us to sit back into the back body and create some space so that there's a place for it to land. And as my guest and I talk today, I invite you to take in at whatever level feels right. It might be intellectual. It might be the sound of our voice. It might be the exchange between us. And let whatever has a place to land, let it land. And if it doesn't, maybe there'll be a place later, or maybe you'll pass. And that's okay as well. So welcome back. Today, I am here with Tania Gonzalez-Ortega. She is an artist, visionary, and multidimensional energy healer. She's also an educator with well over 2 decades of experience in energy healing. Since 2000, Tania has dedicated herself to studying and practicing various forms of energy work, including Reiki, Crystalline Consciousness Technique, Holodynamics, family constellations, emotional mind integration, and rapid core healing. Tania had studied with spiritual masters and healers in India and in the United States, immersing herself in teachings on non-duality and yogic principles for many years. Tania's spiritual journey began with the Kundalini awakening, leading her through a tumultuous and arduous, long, dark night of the soul, a necessary journey which led to a miraculous healing encounter with Christ. This awakening uncovered her spiritual gifts, including astral travel, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and light language. In her one-on-one sessions, Tania utilizes the modalities mentioned above, as well as light language and form drawing, to guide her clients into utilizing potent energies that they have within. Whether it's for individuals, families, or businesses, Tania's sessions activate your own healing potential within your own crystalline light body, facilitating deep transformation at the soul level. Clients often emerge from sessions with Tania feeling a newfound sense of peace, deepened connection with self, and a relief from long-standing symptoms. Many also report improved relationships and increased abundance in their lives. Sounds so beautiful and transformative. Thank you, Tania, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's so lovely to have you back.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be in this space.
Or to be back in your space, yeah.
Yeah.
So we connected. I think I found you, is what happened. I reached out to you a while ago when I found your podcast and your website on New Earth Consciousness. And it was one of the first podcasts and websites where I'd seen something very specific naming the New Earth. And so I was drawn to it. I was also drawn to all the books behind you. And I had the sense that we sort of tackled things the same way.
Yeah.
You know, we were very expansive energetically, but we also love to take in information, right?
Yeah.
At the other level.
Always.
And so, that was somehow anchoring for me, to know that you were also pretty grounded, intellectually. So I was drawn to you and listened to a few of your podcasts and sat with you, and shared some of my own work. And I thought, it felt like time to circle back and talk a little about, where you are right now and what you're doing. And so, I would, like to start as usual. I start hearing a little bit about your experience, and for yourself. I think at the time too, when I found your podcast, your website talked about your own Kundalini awakening and experience and health issues that came with it. And, I was reading Bonnie Greenwell's book. She's a author who writes a lot about, I guess the effects, right, of that type of awakening. So that was kind of what initiated me. And, I saw that you were a yoga teacher. So I was curious about your journey and how things started for you, on this path, of awakening. And so I thought I might start a little there.
Okay.
And then we can backtrack, into, your work and what you are doing professionally and in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So my Kundalini awakening happened in my early adulthood. I was trying to remember. It was in 98 or 99. So I was in my early 20s, and my awakening started before the massive Kundalini awakening. I was a student at UCLA, an art student. And what started to happen was, I was in this class, it was called New Genres, which was really pushing students to be on the cutting edge of art. Like, oh, art's not just painting and drawing pictures and making objects. New genre could be performance art. It could be installation. It could be video. It could, so it was really like that. And, what started happening is I was like, in my mind, for some reason, my consciousness started to go to, okay, well, what is art really? And I just started to see the mind and seeing its cyclical nature. Like, okay, where does it end? Where does it begin? What came first? And I found myself like, it was just this, for some reason, that question, that investigation opened me up to other questions that I was having, which led me to begin to look at other religions. I started reading Alan Watts and just investigating consciousness, right? Because as an artist, I'm like, well, where is this stuff coming from? If I'm creating, where's the beginning of it? And I couldn't find it, all I could see was the mind. Like it was, and so which led me to meditation. And I just started experimenting with that. And there were moments where I had this experience of having no thought, right? The mind, of observing the thoughts as being the awareness. And I'll never forget it. It was on the beach in San Francisco, not Stinson. It was, anyway, I forget the name of the beach, but it was there in San Francisco, meditating on the beach. And I remember suddenly the mind stopped completely. There was no thought. And I was looking at the world through the eyes of not having any thoughts or judgment or figuring out, like, none of the internal dialogue, which I think most people experience is pretty much constant. And so I was like, it was a split second, and it felt like such incredible peace. There was just like, I saw things as they really were. And then of course the mind comes in like, oh, I want to grab onto that. What is this? And then the mind's back to doing its thing. Right. And, my introduction into yoga was really just happenstance. I was kind of experiencing a little bit of depression because I felt isolated living in a big city. Wasn't making a lot of friends. I just graduated from college, blah, blah, blah. And so I decided, okay, well, I'll go see a counselor. And the counselor just sat with me for one session, she's like, I think you should just go do some yoga. I was like, okay, sure, I'll go do some yoga. So I went, I found there was one in my neighborhood, walking distance. It was the Shivananda Yoga Center there in San Francisco. And I started taking classes. And I had always been a very inflexible person, very tight, even as a kid. And, as a quintuple Scorpio, I just went all in. I was like, okay, I'm going to touch my toes eventually, and my body started to really open up, like really rapidly, like suddenly. I don't know if it was like a remembrance from past lives or whatever, but it really was rapid, the transformation that was happening. And so I ended up deciding to do yoga teacher training with them. And it was a 4-week training up in Valmarin, Canada. And, I was doing, 4 hours of yoga every day and listening to the teachings from the head swamis. And, it was such a profound experience. Things just started happening really rapidly. I got my mantra, was initiated into a mantra that I chose. And I just went and did what they told me, which was, okay, focus on the third eye and just mentally repeat your mantra with devotion. And okay. So I went and I sat in this little dome. They called it like the Peace Dome. And it was this little meditation hut. I was by myself and I went in and I started doing the practice. And my body, what happened is I could see from within, it was filling up with light. And I felt like I was starting to rise. And as this energy was intensifying and I could feel myself going, it felt like I was going higher and higher, almost like I was floating maybe. And I remember having the thought of like, this is enlightenment. I'm gonna, because that was it. Like I really, really just had this strong desire of like, I want to escape human suffering. I don't want to deal with it. I want to be at peace. I want this enlightenment that all the gurus and the saints talk about. Right. And, but in that moment, there was this huge growl, like a lion's roar. And it was like you shall not pass kind of a feeling. Like it was this. And of course I just was completely frightened and I stopped the meditation completely because I was like, what was that? Nothing I never experienced anything like that. It was this huge roar and inside that I could hear, like it was all around me. I was inside this lion's roar. And, so I stopped, and that's when all the symptoms, I didn't know, and I'm guessing that was the Kundalini rising, awakening. And that's when after that, everything went haywire in my system. And so it lasted for a couple of years. Like just strange experiences, all different kinds. And so it was a struggle for 2 years. It really felt like dark night of the soul. I felt so disconnected I just wasn't the same person. And I didn't feel like it was a struggle to stay in my body. And I left the ashram. I lost a ton of weight. I was having all kinds of experiences in the dream world, I guess you would say, physical symptoms. And what the biggest lesson with all of this for me at that time, I was really struggling. I was really trying to fix what was happening, right? I kept trying to meditate. I kept trying to, I don't know, do yoga, all these things. I tried to do like cleansing diets and, all this stuff. And one thing led to another. And again, looking back, I was like, it just seems like all divinely orchestrated. But that encounter with Christ was through a gentleman that I had met. He kind of came into my life again, randomly by coincidence. I met him through my aunt and uncle, and I had no connection to to Jesus Christ or anything. Like, I mean, of course I knew who he was, but I didn't go to church. My dad was atheist, no connection. And, I just had this profound experience where over 2-3 days of meeting this gentleman and his wife and being at their home, when I came back, I had this dream where it felt like my soul came back into my body, and I woke up and all of my symptoms were gone. The anxiety, the depression, all of it. Like, I felt so alive and so connected to life around me. It was like night and day. And, with the dark night of the soul, the thing that kept me sort of tethered, was I read St. John of the Cross, his Dark Night of the Soul, manuscript, I guess. And he basically explains it as a purification process, and that there's nothing you can do. And so that really, I was like, oh, okay. There's literally nothing I can do. It's up to God as to when I'm done. And it really came, and it ended because I had a deep surrender. I finally stopped trying to fix it, and I had a conversation with God, and I just said, okay, my life is yours. If I'm going to be crazy, homeless, like whatever, like really, because that was my fear, is like, I feel like I'm crazy, And so I said, okay, well, if this is how it's going to go, I'm yours. And that's when everything shifted. And so the lesson for me at that time was, it was just so profound. Like, I finally got like, oh, I don't have to earn God's grace. Like, because I think that's what I had learned as a child, to always perform for love. Right. And that's the pattern that was just running, even with doing the yoga and everything. Like, I'm going to make it through my own will and through performing and being good and all of that. I'm going to get what I want. And it's like, it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you tapped into the core wound that was holding everything together, like the linchpin.
Yeah.
And there was, the purifying of that. And was there trauma processing that was happening in that at a psychological level, or was most of it at a physical level?
Yeah, it was everything. I mean,
everything.
It was literally like, it's something I would never wish upon anybody. It was so frightening that I think, I'm sure my body must have been processing trauma. I mean, I definitely had trauma in my childhood, and things that weren't processed, right? Like, as a kid, I couldn't talk, I couldn't express myself. I could never say no to my parents. My father was a very angry person. I never knew, I mean, he wasn't physically abusive, but he had such explosive anger that as a sensitive child, it was like, I just lived in fear, right? Like, how's he going to react to everything? And so I think, I had to go through and feel that trauma. Like, I had, experiences of, and I know some people might know what this is, but the sleep paralysis. So that was happened a lot during this experience. And so that obviously, I think they found that just comes from unprocessed trauma. Right. And so, and then also the physical part was that I didn't realize until after coming out of it that my body had a tremendous amount of heavy metals in my system and I'm not sure where that came from. I can only guess that maybe it was from living in Mexico City as a kid with all the pollution in the air and leaded gas, gas wasn't unleaded back then. Because I had a ton of lead and mercury, and so my nervous system couldn't handle the the energy of the Kundalini, because there was just all this, all these metals and toxins and so forth. So,
Yeah.
Yoga is something that has to be approached carefully. But what I find interesting is I meet people all the time that have had this experience. And so it's curious to me how it can happen so quickly and out of the blue and unexpectedly, So sometimes whether you're doing yoga or not, sometimes it's like, well, it's just part of your karma, or it's when it's time, it's time.
It's time. Yeah. I see it. I mean, there was a group of us in somatic experiencing that were all going through it, and that's trauma processing training, right? So, I think it can happen when you're doing deep work and you're doing embodiment work, if that's going to be a way that you pop open in your consciousness. But certainly it coming spontaneously and without guidance is difficult. And so part of why I think we're here as well is to shepherd people through and try to titrate expansion so that you can still go on with your life and function during it. So yeah, so I appreciate. And so with that, as we start to hear a little bit more then of where that led you, was that part of your stepping into not internal family systems, family constellation work?
Yeah, what I discovered, I came across family constellations probably about 10 years ago and knew nothing about it. I was invited to a free workshop and I went, and I was the one that got to be picked to receive. And all I told the facilitator was that I had these health issues, right? Like I explained, whatever, heavy metals and digestive issues and all of this stuff that I said, yeah, it showed up in my early adulthood, and it's just been an ongoing issue. And so the constellation was held, and what was discovered was there was a lot of trauma in my mother's lineage. And, growing up, and my mother's own trauma as well. She had 2 miscarriages, which I didn't know anything about. And it was confirmed by her that she indeed had miscarriages. And then, so going into the lineage, there was just, you could see and for people who don't know how family constellations work, how it works is, when it's an in-person workshop, there's a group of people, nobody who knows your story, and you don't go into the story, but you select people to represent yourself, your mother, your father, grandmother, whatever. And so it's phenomenological. And so it's whatever shows up in the moment. So in any rate, so these people I'm watching them represent the members in my family, and they're having this experience, right? They're experiencing grief or sadness or, alienation or, whatever is happening. And so she brought in several generations. And as we went back in the generations and people were brought in to represent the women in the lineage, clearly there was a lot of trauma. At one point, one woman collapsed to the floor. She says, I feel really sick. I can't stay. She had to leave. I was like, wow, whoa. And so what was fascinating to me, I'm watching this like a movie, just kind of tripping out, like, whoa, what is this? What is this? It's blowing my mind. And at the end of the constellation, once it was, healing sentences were said and loyalties and burdens were given back, she had me then come into the constellation. The person representing me sat down. I stepped into the role as myself, and my whole body started to shake, and I just burst into tears. I could not continue to carry the trauma that was passed down generation. So this is a lot of whatever we're suffering from these patterns, they get repeated and they get passed down, and it's in our DNA, it's in our bodies. And, you know the importance of ancestral work. And so it has to be seen and acknowledged. Like the truth has to be seen and acknowledged. And that's the only way then we can give it back and honor our ancestors. But, we don't have to continue the pattern. We don't have to continue the passing the trauma down through the next generations. And so, it was a lot. It was a lot. So it's a way to feel what needs to be felt. And often it can catch people off guard, right? Like with your session that I had with you, for example, you were playing the music for me and all these emotions were coming up, and it's like all of that is in the body, right? And for us to, if we want to expand and continue to evolve, feelings need to be felt so that they can pass through, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how we can expand the heart and understanding of who we are.
Yeah. That's the bottom line with all the healing that's happening right now, is getting into the body to feel it. So this methodology, which was developed, I was reading a little about it by someone who had lived with Zulu indigenous people and understood lineage, the way that lineage is held in the field. Developed a way of working with it that sounds very healing. I know I read about it in Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. And that was the first time I'd heard about it. And it wasn't, I knew some people in somatic experiencing who were involved in it. And then when I pulled up your website, you're actually facilitating a process online around lineage and money. And so I watched that episode and it was fascinating. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Money is such we project so much onto money, and we also inherit money stories from our parents and their parents and so on and so forth. So, and what I noticed, I mean, it's really apparent to me that everybody has a story around money, and oftentimes it's a limiting one. And so when we can untangle ourselves from realizing like, oh, I don't have to carry these limiting beliefs wherever they come from. For some people, it might be a fear that, oh, well, if I make more money than my parents, for example, I'm being disloyal. There could be loyalty to staying in poverty, there can, and sometimes, I'll just give my own family as an example. My father felt that money was evil. And why? Because his family made a lot of money through really just a lack of an integrity, right? They were dishonest, they were greedy. And so his response, like, I don't want anything to do with it.
Interesting.
And so I grew up with that money is not spiritual, it's evil. For my mother, there was always a feeling there's never enough money. Like I grew up with money being evil, and that we were living in scarcity. Like that, I always grew up feeling like, oh my gosh, the rug's getting pulled out at any second, because my mother was panicking about money or feeling, and so when leaving home, I just felt like I just didn't even pay attention to money then. I completely ignored it.
It's just going to show up when I need it.
Yeah, exactly. That's how, and it kind of did, really. I mean, until I became a mom, and then it was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I have to provide for somebody else. And that was when it kind of my own personal journey of trying to figure money out started. And it really, yeah. And so everybody has all these different stories. And so when we do family constellations, we can figure out, okay, what kind of relationship do I want to have with money? And can I give back? Okay, Mom, I see you. I give back your fear around money and your scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, I give back to you your feelings that money is evil. And it really creates, and so people can end up with a fear of success, a fear of having it, a fear of losing it. People spend money as soon as they get it. They don't know why. It's like, I can't hold on to it. It's like, oh, I got to let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know why. I mean, that's really it. It's like, if you just see the patterns, you're like, I don't know why I do this.
Yeah.
Why do I go shop and spend when I'm feeling blue, or why am I hoarding it and I'm terrified of spending any of it, So, constellations can help to unravel that.
Mm-hmm. Is really getting to, if we think of money as a metaphor for receiving anything nourishing, because love can be something that we receive, money, and that it feels like it can, you can use that as the entrance topic as well to kind of get in there around receiving at all. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can really boil down to giving and receiving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm battling being the chronic overgiver, like, okay, bring it back. You gotta,
Mm-hmm.
And I think as women, that's also very typical. We just tend to we think that we just have to give and give and give and not receive and put ourselves last, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So the thread of family constellations then, because I saw you also work with nature as well, you can keep expanding into whatever creative impulse you have, or the need, I suppose, that you're seeing that's ready to be met. And you're following that right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think when it comes to nature, as a collective, that's the rub, I guess, as human beings that we're having to wake up to or contend with, right? So, I was listening to Bob Proctor the other day, and he said something really is very obvious. Like, animals are completely in harmony with nature, right? They just do their thing. They blend in. They don't necessarily, it's all in balance. But we're the only species where we're we're just sticking out like a sore thumb, right? And obviously it's like, whatever, if we're just an experiment or we're just a part of an evolutionary process of consciousness. It's, I believe that for me, this is what I felt within myself, is like, really the core wound is just this separation from nature, or separation, spirit and matter being separate. And so, finding our way back to healing that wound where we decided nature is separate. Nature's to be manipulated. Nature's, we're humans. We have power over. We're not connected to it. We see it in even in certain religions where it's like nature is not even, that our destiny is heaven. It's not even,
on the earth.
Yeah, the earth could just go away and who cares? That's not why we're here. And it's like, I don't think so. I think there's so with nature constellations, you can begin to really just reconnect with and feel in the body, right? This intelligence, nature's intelligence, which surrounds us all the time, and is, when we open to it, actually can speak to us and inform us with what we need to know and understand.
Yes.
and can transform us,
Yes. I know a lot of people are speaking about that more and more now it seems like, whether it's from, I just watched the movie The Sixth Son, and the indigenous elders, they've spent 11 years. So hearing from them. And then for a while, I was tracking some of Bill Plotkin's work where he takes people on vision quests. He just, no cell phones, like drops you right back down to just you and nature. And there's a, reuniting, reunification, remembering process that occurs. So I love that you are, creating the spaces as well to invite people back into that. And I think one of your episodes I listened to, you doing your own work with nature around a relationship in your life where you had the tree represent the person. And I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to see how that goes. So,
did you try it?
Yeah, I haven't yet. No, this last.
It was surprising. It was surprising to me. I mean, it really was just an experiment, because I personally haven't really like gotten any training from someone that's like, I do nature constellations. There are people that do that. But once you have the understanding of how constellations work, it's like, well, a lot of it is just intention and intention setting and being open to the field. And so, that experience of asking the tree, I want you to represent my husband, and you're going to represent this other person. And it was a very moving experience. I mean, I remember just breaking into tears and feeling the love that my husband has for me and how I was resisting it. Again, not being able to receive that amount of love. And it opened my eyes to what is actually true. And it helped me to let go of this resistance that has nothing to do with him or anybody else. It's all, within me. And, powerful.
Wow.
Yeah. So powerful.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it. Well, it sounds like people can find you for either of those still, that you're doing those two things. And you're also doing some work with handwriting, which if we have a moment to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that brought my curiosity because in my programs, we talk a lot about the sensory processing system and how we've lost a lot of those, some of the building blocks of organizing the sensory processing system, which comes from larger motor movements and fine motor movements. And with the loss of children using their pen and using computers, their connection to themselves through that hookup, that neurological hookup that happens with writing, and what that's doing to them developmentally, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question as an educator, because I know you're an early educator of children. And then as a pathway, I do morning, what does she call it? In the artist way, she calls it morning pages. But for me, it's morning channeling. It's like opening up the door to talk to source through writing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would happen if I was on the computer typing as well. Yeah. So I have this, curiosity about the hands and the flow, the way that creativity flows.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Waldorf education, Steiner was very clear about the importance of connecting the head, the heart, and the hand. That's what makes us really human. Because with typing or on the computer, like all the forces, well, in education in general, it's all about the head, right? Information, not embodied. And what happens is that actually, when we awaken the astral forces in children too early, for example, like if we're like forcing them, you got to read by the time you're 5 and, know what math is. And, Steiner was very clear about, you don't bring this in until they're older, right? Because there's a reason for that. Their soul is developing. It develops in a certain way. And so when you try to push too much, push the child forward too quickly into the head, what happens eventually is, as adults, you get the neuroses and the illnesses and all of that. So, yeah, and unfortunately, our society is so imbalanced. We're so mental in our approach to everything, right? And we've lost that connection with the heart. And so when you are working with your hand, with your hands, those forces are being drawn from the head down into the heart and out through the hand, right? So handwriting definitely is doing that. It's activating that. Taking it further, why is handwriting important? So what most people don't know is that there's healthy and unhealthy handwriting. So, and it kind of goes back, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is the handwriting revealing how the brain is wired, or is the handwriting wiring the brain? It's kind of all intertwined. So, in school, of course, they took out handwriting altogether, right? Nobody does cursive anymore. The kids just know printing. And so what printing does, if you are an adult and you are a printer, what that is actually, it's a very, how do I want to say it? It's kind of you're kind of hiding yourself in that. And it's not, it's keeping you in a different state of mind, maybe a more childish, childlike state of mind. So, block printers, people that write in all caps, they are very rigid. They're very like policemen, firemen, follow the rules. This is how it is. Very inflexible. And so they've taken the handwriting out, the cursive. Before that, there was the Palmer method. And that's probably what you and I learned as kids. And the Palmer method is a form of handwriting that came out of the 1800s. So it's very it's very archaic. It's like, it's all about, being the sheep, following authority, just outdated. And so with handwriting, the Vimala Rogers, she developed a system of handwriting that is much more connects us to our soul, who we are at a soul level. So it's much more heart-centered than mental. And so certain strokes evoke different types of energy. So it's softer, it's more open. And there's all kinds of things that go into it, like how you write it on the page, like what letters connect to each other. Each letter has a different energy. It's connected to a deity or a spirit, and so what I've discovered for myself, when I changed my handwriting used to be very crowded and lots of loops and, Josephine Diamond is the woman that I learned this from. She teaches something called alphabetology that combines namology, which is understanding the power of a person's name and what their soul came here to learn, and graphology, which is looking at a person's handwriting and seeing the personality, seeing the the challenges and even physical issues, and then bringing in the Vimala alphabet. So my handwriting was I was very overwhelmed. You could see it. And since I've changed my handwriting over the last 3 years now, I just use the Vimala alphabet. I've noticed that my energy is much more calm, much more grounded. My relationship with my partner, I'm far less argumentative. Uh, you know, and it goes beyond that too. It's actually it's another tool for manifesting the reality you want, right? So our brains are so powerful, right? What we visualize, our energy, everything, like we're creating our reality by the thoughts we think, by the emotions we experience, by what we're visualizing about, what we're thinking about. And so the handwriting is another way of cultivating who you are so that your reality is reflecting back to who you're becoming, right?
Mm-hmm. And bringing it into form. I had so many things popping around as you were speaking. One was, I often talk about the nervous system, the state of your nervous system, or your connection to your signature frequency, which is the core self, being illustrated in the pace of your voice and the tone and your presence. But now I can add handwriting as well, right? Because that's going to reflect as well the summation of who you are or how you're operating, right? Whether you're in hyperarousal or you're
right.
in
Are you scribbling
spacious.
really fast?
Yeah.
That's how I used to be. It's just like, slowing down, being mindful. Yeah. It's all of
Yeah. Or, someone like me, I'd love to get an analysis is where I might start with handwriting and then I go to just blocks and then back. So I have this like very interesting mix of no consistency in, so yeah, I have all kinds of thoughts about, wow, what does that mean? So I would love to hear more. I also wonder as an artist too, in this idea of, making that space to channel, right, who you are through that vehicle of writing, which could, doesn't have to be to create art for someone. It's can be as simple as, just bringing anything through in your day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's how you bring your presence of who you are through.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly. I think that, when it comes to creating your reality, this is why we have free will and choice. We get to choose, right? Do we want to be victims to our circumstances? Because that's the thing, Maya, the illusion feels so real, right? And most people tend to think, oh, it's my circumstances, I can't change it, and they don't realize that they have the power to change. And so the most challenging part is to not believe your circumstances, right? Well, one, you accept where you are, of course. Let's say you're, struggling financially or struggling in a relationship or whatever. But the key is to just see it for what it is and then make the choice of like, okay, I'm going to bring in something else. And so whatever so when we change the energy within, regardless of what our circumstances, then our circumstances will change, and, there's so much to that. I mean, I remember, when COVID was happening and just feeling like, that was a time where there was just so much put onto us, right? And feeling like you have no choice. This is like, you just have to follow this and do that and all the things, and feeling the chaos of all of that. I remember being outside walking and it just landed into my heart. I don't know, from my higher self or what, but it was just like, I'm free. I can choose to be free. My circumstances do not define who I am. My circumstances don't define how I experience my life. I can choose to be free. that's really kind of, I think, the beginning of transformation is when you realize, oh, I'm actually free to change.
Yeah. Reminds me of Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite books, Man's Search for Meaning, and allowing ourselves to hold both the suffering and the beauty of life at the same time, but not be defined by either. Yeah, and I think that's, what many of us who are creating the spaces for conversation are inviting people into. So to sum it up and kind of bring it back, when we talk about New Earth consciousness, or this, thought of a new Earth, it is more about a perception change than anything, right? Is allowing those systems that are no longer serving us to dismantle, but doing this inner work, which you're talking about, and all these pathways, so we can find those answers within to help each other dream ourselves into something new.
Yeah.
And that was my take home when I watched the movie The Sixth Sun, was the Aboriginal elders talking about the dreaming ourselves into the next version. But we have to get all the old out first.
Yeah, we have to break through the illusions of what we've been believing to be true, and realizing, like, oh, they're actually not true, because once you break through that, there's so much more, right? There's so much more available to life. And and so there's, the Great Awakening or whatever, there's something more. And I feel that it has so much to do with the divine, actually, and what the divine wants for us, because we're part of a larger evolutionary process, right? I mean, consciousness is always expanding. I mean, you can look at through human history, right? And how we've evolved and all the quantum leaps that we've taken, right, in our consciousness. And we're just at another time where there's a potential and a possibility for a whole nother leap of perceiving world and perceiving the world in an entirely different way, experience. It's not so much about, figuring it out, but more about how do like, even as I'm sitting with you here, like as we've been talking, there's been, I feel like waves of energy that have come, like you'll say something, I'm like, I'll feel the tingles and so there's energy that's moving, that's happening, that's acknowledging, that's saying yes, that's guiding us, right? And so when we can open, and again, coming back to the body, it can reveal so much. And this vessel is, we're connected to the divine through this vessel. So this, again, spirit matter coming together. I'm sure that's what the indigenous are talking about, is like this return back to realizing. But it's an exciting time because, the indigenous had a connection with nature for thousands of years, right? And so this separation that happened, my understanding, was a necessary part in our evolution. This idea of like, oh, I'm an individual and I'm separate. And now coming to the next level, which is, which I don't know what it is. I mean, I think I'm groping right now. Like I'm groping. I want to, I'm a willing participant.
Yeah. Many of us. Yeah. Weathering the storms of each shift that happens each week.
Yeah.
But thankfully we have each other to connect with, and then, bringing in some of these helpful supports, whether that's energetic or holding the new paradigms. And that might be a nice place to end.
Yeah.
I did want to start giving my guests one or two questions that I could consistently ask all of them to again, because I think of this as a resource for the community. So if you don't mind, I sent them to you earlier just to think about. But one was, if you had to choose one helpful practice that you've used on your journey, given that we are in the place that we're in, right? So then we sort of turn behind us, put our hands out, right? To give the rope to the people behind us, and then someone else is giving us a rope and we're all just helping. Do you have one that stands out for you that's been particularly helpful that we could pass on to the listeners?
Like a personal practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personal practice.
Yeah. Definitely. I think for me, it's dance. Honestly, music, movement, dance, ecstatic dance, like really, dancing in your room with nobody watching and just letting your body move however you want it to move. It could look weird. It could be silly. It could be graceful. It could be slow. It could be fast. I have had so many experiences where I'm able to either tap into something that I need to let go of. Like, I'll give an example. I remember I was kind of just going through some sadness around, my son was going through a difficult time and I was feeling very overwhelmed. And I remember deciding to turn on a song and dance in my kitchen. And I was able to move through my grief, and just allow myself to weep and to moving that energy. It's like, it's nothing to fear, And so because we've become so, we're on the computer. I know I'm on the computer way, way more than I want to be. Moving the body in a way that's connected with emotions. So it's not so much about like, okay, I'm just going to exercise on the machine. Expression, movement, dance, expression, music.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Another untapped ancient wisdom that's built into many indigenous cultures, right? Is why they don't have trauma, is because they move their body. They move their bodies. I love it. I love that you brought in music, because this podcast is about psychology, somatics, and sound and spirituality. Music being a beautiful backdoor way for us to drop into our emotions. And we don't often think of it as a resource that, doesn't cost money.
We don't. Mm-hmm. And it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned it. All right. My last question then is, if there was a message that you felt was important for people right now, right? Because I know our messages can change as we who are setting up these communities, we might feel compelled to share a different message. But if there's one right now that feels important for you, for those that are listening, what stands out?
I really, my message is the way through this time, with so much divisiveness and manipulation that we have going on through our screens and whatever. I really do think that the way through is through contact, like intimate, vulnerable willingness to connect with one another. I think that, there's a lot of emphasis on the inner work on ourselves, which is powerful. But I think there's so much more healing that's possible when we actually either connect with another or we're in a group, being held by a group. Those interactions and real human connections and experiences are what I think wires us, in a healthy way. So, that's the message I would like to leave. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. To stay with our humanness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where can people find you? Where are some of the places?
Yeah. So newearthconsciousness.com is my website. I'm on Facebook I'm one of those people, I can't handle all the different platforms. It just overwhelms me. So most of the stuff that I post is on Facebook. If you look me, Tania Elena, I use my middle name on there. You can find me there. And yeah, those two places are the easiest.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for spending time with me and sharing all this beautiful, vulnerable and also educational. I feel like we were able to really balance that in the conversation. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paula. It's been a pleasure.